Hi everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. We're looking at Dave's Homelite Whiz. I think the fundamentals are good, but this saw is going to present some cleanup challenges. I was testing for spark, and I noted some interesting things moving around. I don't know how well you're going to see that, but I'm pretty sure that is one massive remnants of a mud dauber nest back there, which of course is not good. That's going to require a lot more disassembly than would have been necessary because it does have good spark. It passed on the 1/4-inch spark jumper, so I've already started taking the thing apart, and it's already started blasting dirt all over the place. Cylinder shroud was loose in the box. If there was hardware with it, I have no idea where it's at. I'll look a little closer in the box, but throttle handle is held on by 3 screws. You got 2 at the bottom here, and this one at the top. And when you look at one of these, if you're having trouble figuring that part out, you're going to have a tough time with one of these. But where I'm at right now is I want to get the fuel tank off and see how much we can clean up from in there. So rather than taking the elbow loose from the carb at the moment, we're going to take it loose at the tank. And then there should be just one other mounting point. Should be that right there, and I think that'll get the tank loose. What I can't remember is if that's... That's going to suck. I thought these tanks were notched. Nothing has gone easy today, so I don't know exactly why I would expect it to start now. Good Lord. Somebody had to have had a hell of a time getting it tight to begin with. But it appears, because of this, we're going to have to take the damn handle off, which is going to make this an unwieldy mess, in the sense that it's going to try and roll all over the bench, unfortunately. These things are a bit awkward. But I guess it can't be avoided. There's the earliest style anti-vibration. Basically a hose wrapped around the handlebar. Alright. Let's see if now we can access this tank. Now, I'll have to look at my IPL. This appears to be a hillbilly fix. And because it's bringing the stud out with it. And I don't think it was supposed to be a lock nut on there, but now I'm questioning. There may be... No, it's those right there. There's... Some of these didn't use this, but there's some mounting points down here. Let's see if we can get those... Need a 7/16 socket. Let's see if we can get those to come loose. I see another mud dauber too. Those damn things would sure make a mess of a saw quick. That nut worked the way it should. stud didn't come out. I'm a little concerned about this one up on the upper part that we were just messing with. That thing may not be any fun to get out. Ooh. Come on, washer. Okay. Okay, from there, I guess we're just going to have to work this stud out, and I will do something about that. I'll look at the IPL and see what was really supposed to happen here. The nut could have never come off though, because of how close it was to the tank cover screw, so I don't know. I don't honestly know what would be next. Okay. Yeah. Beats me. Alright, we need to get the oil line loose. And this plunger was a little sticky. Couldn't tell if it was in the plunger housing or if it's one of the check valves. But this way, I'm having it up, I can check. Because if I push the plunger... Alright. Yeah, it's in the check valve assembly in here, or some debris in the plunger housing itself. Okay, well there's a tank. And here is some more of the Mud Dauber Special that I was talking about. Obviously I don't want that going down in the intake. At least get the worst of it off here. Alright. Now, since we've already got the damn thing upside down, might as well start working. Oh, this is gonna suck. Gotta get this starter off. Now, I think I can leave that as an assembly. Oh, work on enough of these to remember exactly. Now we're coming up on a common problem, which is these stupid flathead screws that Homelite seem to fall in love with, and they seize up. They seize up bad. Okay, that one we got. But once the heads get even remotely janky, they're a pain. And these are a pain.
Is this trailer unlocked?
No. See, like this one's going to be a real pain. There, it moved. Trick is getting it to hammer and not slide out. Okay, a little bit of cussing later. Here we are. I still got to get the damn switch lead loose, and I can't tell yet. Okay, it is a slip-on. Some of these things were screwed in place. Ah, there we go. There we go. Alright. This takes the cake, folks. This really takes the cake. I have never seen one this bad. Hopefully there's nothing still alive in here. Look at all this. I would say the entire flywheel housing was full of these at one point. Unbelievable. I mean, holy crap. Well, that's wild. Alright. Now the good news, and there's plenty of good news, is the starter cup has next to no wear. Those shoes are operating flawlessly down there. That's how you test these. Just pull it over and watch for those shoes to come out like that. And you want it to come out with the sharp edges, which are those edges right there. So it's rotating like that. You want that sharp edge to dig into the starter cup. That's the whole point of it. If you pull gently like this and you get no movement, or you see the trailing shoe coming out without the sharp edge, you need to tear this apart and put it together the right way. Now this is one of those saws that operates clockwise as opposed to counterclockwise. There's not very many Homelites that are made to run like that. So you got to keep that in mind when you're testing this as well. God, I even built the house around the starter or switch terminal here. Can't even see it. Mud dauber infestations in old Homelites is not uncommon. But mud dauber infestations to that level, that's a new one on me. Alright, so I wouldn't have needed to even go that far knowing the ignition is good if it wasn't for those mud daubers. I would have taken the throttle handle off, basically where we started, and I would have reached back with the long flat blade and got that screw, and then the one that's buried way the hell over here. There's three, kind of a triangle shape. So now that it's like this, I can clean it a hell of a lot better, and that's what I'm going to go ahead and do, is get it cleaned up, and then we'll come back and we'll go through the carburetor. You guys have seen a lot of Tillotson rebuilds, but you've never seen one being pulled off the saw. And most of these old saws use this style intake block. So this process is going to be very similar, whether it's a Whiz, a 700, even the 900s, the 926, 909s. They all had the same basic style here, with a few differences, but basically the same setup. So anyway, we'll get some stuff cleaned up and come back. Okay, I think there was about a pound of dirt and sawdust out of there. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but not a hell of a lot. Okay, it's about the best view I'm going to give you guys, and it isn't good, but it's as good as it can get. So you've got to rotate the saw to where your head... I'm saying, all disassembled. These things are an unwieldy mess. And this does not give you a straight shot. So breaking it loose, you want to be pretty careful. I've got a stiffer screwdriver here. There it goes. Now I'll go back to the round. You can get a straighter shot if you take both mixture needles out. Then you want to make damn certain you're not mixing them up. But I'm confident that that way will work here. Our goal is going to be to reuse the base gasket here. That's always my goal. How it comes off will dictate that. Yeah. Some days things go smoothly, other days they fight you. Okay, that one's not totally unscrewed yet. Okay. And we'll be using that gasket again. That came out very nicely. Get these screws set aside. And you can see that even with all of that cleaning I did, there's still garbage on here. So, go clean it some more. Okay, so it's always my goal to take as few things apart as possible. It's efficient that way, and it's more cost effective for the customer. Now, I know I've got HL46 rebuild videos out here on the YouTube site, because it's a similar, what the hell is that? Similar enough carb to so many others. If I don't have the exact one, I've got close to it, but I think I have the exact one. So we're going to start by pressure testing this. Now the carb is one thing I don't skimp on when it comes to testing and inspection, because you could actually get a good pressure test on an old stiff diaphragm carb. Now that's not the point. I gotta have somewhere to start. Glad we did. See that? I've talked about those fuel turret leaks before. Now this one you can see is not even sitting in there flat. It's raised right there. So this may be too distorted to use that fuel turret again. That's interesting. It wasn't super tight, but it's full of crap. Yeah, that thing's distorted beyond use. So that's unfortunate. And I think I've got some somewhere, but see how that outer edge there is just all wankered? No bueno. Not going to cut it. That was a case of it was probably swollen, because the originals will swell up. So when you put it back into place, you got to be damn careful. And it looks like somebody missed the damn careful step, unfortunately. I've almost missed it myself, but thankfully caught it before completely distorting one. Yeah, so clearly I'm going to have to take a look inside the tank at whatever filter it is or isn't there. That's a lot of junk that's made it in here. Just for grins, let's go ahead and pull this thing the rest of the way apart. We'll see what all we're dealing with. Now that leaking turret made it difficult, if not impossible, to diagnose any other leaks. So I really don't know if the inlet needle and seat are good on this. More than likely it'll have to be a reassembly and a repressure test with a new turret before we can totally nail that down. But hey, it is what it is. It's not uncommon on an HL to have to take it apart more than once, unless you're just replacing everything as you go, and that gets expensive, and parts are hard to find in some cases. So I prefer the more targeted approach. Alright. Well, it came off. Smells like mold or stale fuel, not moldy fuel. But this is still pliable. Got some sawdust that's made it through the air bleed that needs to be cleaned up. Let's see what our diaphragm looks like. See, there are index pins down here, so you don't want to reef on that hard. What I was doing in both cases was prying on the side, just gently lifting till it pops loose. That's good. It's a good sign. Nothing is crunchy so far. Those diaphragms are not shot. And if that needle drops under gravity, which it appears to be, it's hard to see, but yeah, it is. So this has the old style inlet arm that doesn't have a connection point. It's just, it touches. But so far, I'm not seeing anything that should prevent this saw from running. And there's nowhere else to go in here. So, I doubt that I'm organized enough to find those fuel turrets right off the bat. So I may have to go off camera and locate those. And then we'll come back for some reassembly. Alright, well, based on the condition of the carb and the diaphragms, these are not bad. So again, I'm not going to replace things that don't need replaced. Clean that screen out, located a new turret, and put it back together, and we're going to give it a shot. Because there's just nothing wrong here. Probably in reality easier to take those screws out, but hey. I do believe that the quality of the original diaphragms and gaskets was better in the 60s. In general, I see less leakage with the OEM stuff than even the new kits from Tillotson. It's not unheard of to have a slightly porous gasket. The reality is some of what they used back in the 60s, 50s, and 60s, it may not be legal today, was better gasket material. Okay. Get our screen in. Again, I like to use this O-ring, this double-edged O-ring that also serves as a fuel cap gasket for a bunch of Homelites. Just takes a little bit of working into place here. It seals so much better than the old cork. And I'm watching this thing to make sure it's centered, and it is. Alright, there's a lot of pressure on that gasket. I don't need to go reefing on it super hard. Give it a pressure test. Okay, so it's not holding. So something in that needle is being a pain in the butt. Which I said, oh good lord, that was a tight seal. I suppose I shouldn't be terribly surprised by that. But that doesn't mean we're going to give up. push a little bit of fuel through there. It's just the spring rate. They had low pop-off pressures. Looks like it'll sit there at 3 all day long. That's funny. Well, we're going to go with it for now, until I know differently. Okay. So it is easier, without a doubt, to assemble the carburetor without the tank in place. And since that's the way we took it apart, that's the way we're going to put it back together. Let's slip that screw in first, since it was the one that caused interference coming out. Reed valve looked pretty dang good. It was sitting nice and flat. So we're not going to screw around with it. Let's get these other 2 screws started. Preferably they don't stick to your thumb and then fall in the trash can like that. And I say, some days things go smooth, and other days, well, they don't. These good and tight. Okay. I was just having some of the garbage off with it. It looks better. Okay. Some parts in here staged. Next thing you want to do is get your starter housing back on. If you make the mistake of putting the tank on first, you're going to get to take this back off again. There's at least one screw you can't get to. Okay. At first, when you look at one of these, it can seem pretty frustrating in terms of getting it apart, but then when you look at it a little closer, it is not so bad. I think this is the screw that is covered by the fuel tank right up here. And until they're all started, I'm going to be just finger tightening these. Now does that, I don't do a huge number of these, is that, yes, that is exterior. And you got to be real careful. You've already seen it roll around on me at least once. I'm keeping the spark plug in because I don't want to get any junk in the cylinder, but it's sticking out, just waiting to get snapped off if it was to roll around and do something silly. So it pays to keep a stabilizing hand on this thing at all times. These little screws have that air shroud just right on. They will try to, either won't start or they'll try to strip out, or excuse me, cross thread. And cross threading is not good. Nothing good about it. Now you note I've left one out midway between where I'm at on the carburetor here, because that is part of that carburetor cover. Alright, before we get the tank on, and this may prevent us from doing a test run today, what we got to do next. Okay. I cannot get to that. So, most of the time, this little tank inlet here, you can see that there's a threaded fitting, but you've got to be able to get to that filter hose, and you just can't do it through there. So really, that threaded fitting is basically good for aiming the fitting so that you can actually get to those 4 screws and get them out. Good news is I don't tend to have that much trouble with these, as long as somebody hasn't gone wild previous installation. But all that trash that was in the carburetor made it by the filter somehow. Now, I don't have any way of knowing if that situation has been rectified. So, that's why we're going to take this apart. If that gasket tears or is a problem, it's going to have to get replaced with Moto Seal. Which would be, of course, why we wouldn't do a test run today. Oop. Oh, Lord. Wow. Well, there's another reason why we won't do a test run today. That tank is loaded with trash. And why there was tape on here. Man, what is all this garbage? It appears to be sawdust. Also massive corrosion. This, okay. This tank's drawn water at some point. This pickup is shot. Look at this. So this is cast with the tube in there. Look how deep I'm digging into that. I'm not even sure that there isn't an air leak somewhere that would actually prevent it from picking up fuel. So that's a problem. But this tank can't stay as junked up as it is. So, much as I preach don't break the seal, we gotta break the seal on this bad boy. Because we gotta find out how much damage, knowing that, let's see if that'll stay in again, knowing how much damage is in there. You end up with fuel tank leaks, all kinds of stuff. Or at the very least, it'll plug a new fuel filter up. But there's so much junk built up here, I couldn't even get the old filter to slip through. It's a tight fit. Now these are self-threading screws similar to the tanks on the Super Easies, Super XLs. And so far I've been pleasantly surprised at how easily these are coming loose. It makes me think they have been out at some time in the past. As a common tank, meaning the oil and the fuel are all shared in this casting. So there's going to be a division in here somewhere. I'm going to say we'll use this time to also get into that oiler and find out why it's not, the plunger's not coming back out very quickly. I would guess that there's a check valve. The inlet check valve may not be opening. That is all contained in there, and I don't want to open that up just yet. Okay. It should be all of them. Okay, what's it going to take? I take that back. This has never been apart before. It's still got the painted sealant there. Like I say, I hate to do this, but seeing as much garbage as I've seen, it's unavoidable. So we're going to try and tap this initially. And that doesn't appear to have budged it at all. Oh, look at that junk. That's whatever old fuel was in there, but look at all the trash that's coming out with it. Alright, I'm not going to waste a bunch more camera time with this. I'm going to slowly have to cut that seal and work that tank apart. Okay. This went from I think it'll be fairly quick and easy to, oh, holy crap. See all that? And if that wasn't dramatic enough, well, hell, let's just look at the cover here. It does not belong in the fuel tank, my friends. So, this is going to take some cleanup. I'll start it tonight. I'll scrape everything that I can, hose it out, dry it out. I'm torn on how to proceed with this, to be honest. Part of me wants to put this in the blast cabinet, and I guess I'll just have to wait and see how scraping it and hosing it and all that, how that does for it. I'm still not sure what all of it is. There's definitely wood in it, and a lot of it. But what kind of carelessness does it take to get it in here like this? Unless it was just a contaminated fuel can. Anyway, that wouldn't have run for very long even with a new filter. So, yeah, like I say, I'm going to get started on cleanup and we'll see where we go from there. Okay, we've reached the stopping point for today on this saw. So I went ahead and blasted it with some aluminum oxide, and you can see just how destroyed. I mean, there's some deep craters in here. It's not all the way through yet, at least nowhere that I've found. But I'm not going for smooth, because you would blow all the way through before you ever found smooth on this. The tank is in just as fun a shape there. But I'm comfortable there's enough metal left that's solid. I'm going to get this cleaned out. Maybe it'll dry out in front of a fan enough that I can get the moto seal on here, screw the tank on tonight. But I need to let the moto seal cure before I can go ahead and do some red coat. And that's what this thing's going to get, is a nice healthy dose of red coat. Now I'm going to have to be, this is going to be a little tricky, because you see the way that neck is formed for the fuel cap. Normally that's where I drain to, and that's not going to work. I'm going to have to drain out this side here, which means I'll need to use a tight blade. Go ahead and trim out whatever forms up in there that might get in the way of installing the new filter. So again, nothing quick and easy about this. But I'm going to hose it out, maybe get the moto seal in tonight. So I think that's where this video is going to end. We'll come back and do the rest of it on another one, because this has got to be getting pretty long.